Hey folks, have you ever wondered about how to use up a lot of crab apples very quickly in your kitchen? Well, today I'm going to show you how to turn crab apples into a vinegar. So this is a crab apple cider vinegar tutorial. Come along with me and let me show you how it all works. Every year I try to make a giant batch of apple cider vinegar with regular apples, but I noticed on one of my walks with my baby that there was an old abandoned farm that had these red crab apples growing. So I thought I would grab some this fall and try making a batch of crab apple cider vinegar. These were quite tart, but if you pick them and let them ripen, they would sweeten up a bit. So that's what we did. We harvested and then we brought these little beauties home and I started chopping them up to make a homemade apple cider vinegar. The reason I chop up apples when I'm making vinegar is that we want the water to draw out the fruit juice right away. So the technique we're using here is called the water infusion. We're going to chop up the apples any which way. We don't take off seeds or peels or cores. Everything is fine. Throw it in a crock, we cover it with water, and let the two sit for a while, and it will make its own apple juice. Now, it's a little weaker than if you had a pure juice, but it works well, and it's a fast way to make up a bunch of vinegar. These little fruits were beautiful, and for some reason, I actually got a more peachy colored apple cider vinegar using crab apples than I do when I use regular apples, which is more of a brown vinegar. So that was really fun. I spent some time in the kitchen chopping up the fruit, and then I covered it with water. So it's important when you add water to your crab apples that you completely cover the fruit. Now it's going to float. We're going to put some weights on it, but things will mold if they're exposed to the oxygen. So I have it here at my kitchen sink. I'm filling the crock and I'm going for 1 to 2 inches of liquid on top of the fruit when it is submerged. I have 2 stoneware weights that we're going to pop on top here to keep the fruit underneath. And so many people have problems with mold, but the secret is to keep your fruit weighted and to clean the surface of the water before you leave it to ferment. So you can see here I am scraping off floating seeds and bits of apple. That is a recipe for disaster. I have a troubleshooting chart actually that I'll try to leave a link in the description below, as well as a course on how to make fruit vinegar if you're interested to dive deeper. Once your apples are all done, the water is on, the weights are in place, everything has been cleared from the surface of the water, you want to cover the container with a breathable cover. Here's what's going to happen. Apples carry a wild yeast, very natural, wild yeast on their skin, and as the apple juice comes out into the liquid, it's going to sweeten it, and those yeasts are going to start feeding on the sugars. They are going to release carbon dioxide. You're going to see bubbles in this time, and you would have to remove a lid every day if you had one in place. So I like to go with a cloth cover, and we'll leave it there for 6 to 10 days, maybe 2 weeks if I get busy and forget about it. After that has been accomplished, you will have a sort of your water will not be clear. It'll be a little cloudy. That's good. There's no mold. You're going to pull off your weights and pour the contents into a cloth-lined bowl. I also, before I do that, like to wipe the rim of the crock just in case there's any mold around the edges where things have where the water level has gone down. I also shoot a photo or two for the blog. Yes, this is over on the blog. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want a printable recipe tutorial. Here we dump the contents into a cloth-lined bowl. Everything goes in, and then we use the cloth as a sort of jelly bag, and we will lift everything out. So we're just left with very, very clear liquid. Few more shots for the blog. Of course, that's important. Often my articles and my YouTube channel go hand in hand. I love using a cloth for this instead of a strainer because it makes sure there's no floaties in your juice. You end up with just pure juice. I like to hold the bag there for a minute or so, let that liquid drip through, and then we will pour it into a fermenting container. Use the cloth, use the cloth, use the cloth. When you are straining out the solids, it's worth it. Otherwise, you will have issues with your ferment. I like to ferment the juice in a jar. I love the clear glass jars. You can see what's happening. You can see what's going on. Unless I am making a giant, like 5-gallon batch of vinegar, I like to use the 1-gallon glass jars. Once again, it's important to have a breathable cover in place. Here I'm popping a paper towel over the top, and this is important now for another reason, not only to release the carbon dioxide the yeasts create, but there's also going to be a second phase of fermentation where the air is going to carry acetic acid bacteria. It will consume the alcohol the yeast produce, and it will make it very sharp and acidic, and that is when you know you have a finished vinegar product, is when it smells very sharp and tastes sharp like vinegar. My preference for storing it is to bottle it up in a jug or a glass bottle and to pop a cork into place. You want to be very careful with your homemade vinegar. It's acidic. It will corrode things like tin canning lids. So if you're storing it in a jar, be sure to use a plastic lid for that. But I love the decorative factor of storing it in glass bottles and jugs. I love how they look sitting out on a shelf. It's they contribute so much when you bottle things up prettily. Make sure you wipe down the sides of your container. Fruit flies don't come to it then. And here you are with a beautiful finished apple cider vinegar product. Once your crab apple cider vinegar has finished, after you bottle it up, go ahead and store it in a dark-ish place. Whether that's a kitchen cupboard or in your pantry, or in my case, in the cold room. It will help preserve the acidity of the finished product for longer if it's kept in a dark and in a cool place. All right, folks, thanks for joining me. If you have comments or questions, leave them below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for joining me, and we will see you next time.